Hello everyone, your friendly neighborhood game guy. I apologize for not having uploaded a video in about a month, but I have a couple of good reasons, but the only good reason that matters right now is that I was preparing this, the first of many to come League of Legends tutorials. So the preseason has hit with a lot of changes, and newer players and even some veteran players are being thrown for quite the loop during it, what with all of the new changes being made and such. So I'm here to help you all along, as well as give you some tips to improve your games, newbies and veterans alike. These guides will cover many different topics, such as the basics of the game to specific champion guides. Now before we get started, I just want to bring attention to something very important. In the title of these guides, right underneath the video, as well as before I begin the guide itself, you will see one of 5 words: beginner, intermediate, advanced, expert, or all. Or possibly a combination of any of the words I just said except for all. That word is going to tell you who this guide is directed towards. And just so you know specifically what I mean by each of those terms, let me explain it. Beginners are anyone who is new to the game and possibly the MOBA genre at all. So you could have possibly played another MOBA such as Dota 2 or Smite, but this is your first time playing League. Technically you could be a beginner, but that all depends on how long you've been playing the game. Intermediate players, I will consider players that are around the level range of 30. They've been playing the game for a bit of time, maybe about a year or so, but they're still learning some core fundamentals of the game, a couple of champion kits, etc., etc. Not very familiar with how fast the meta could possibly change. Advanced players, and as much as I would like to not use this, I will use it, rank. I won't go too much into detail about it, but I'll just say that there are 6 ranks? There's bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, master, and challenger. That's actually 7. Oh, I'm bad at counting. But the 5 that really matter are bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and diamond for the purpose of these guides. Anyone that is from around the range of silver to gold, I will consider them advanced, or at least somebody that's been playing the game for maybe 2 or 3 years, because at that point you should have the experience and knowledge to really know the sorts of things I'll discuss in those kinds of guides. Expert players, like myself, are people who have played for at least 3 years or are around the ranks of platinum or higher. Now, pros are pros. I don't make these guides for the professional League of Legends players. They know what they're doing. But just for the sake of people that are underneath the pros, like us, I'll just use expert for the term. Yes, I do consider myself an expert at the game. I've been playing the game for 4 years now. I made Platinum 5 last season, and I'm aiming for Diamond this season, so I think I've got a good foundation of knowledge. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making these guides to help everyone now, would I? Now, one other thing I'd like to specify. I'm not saying your rank dictates how good you are. I'm just saying that it's a good way of measuring the experience that different players have. Mainly because that's pretty much true. The more experience you have, obviously the higher ranking you could become. So, without further ado, let's get right into this first guide. For those of you joining me today, welcome to League of Legends, a multiplayer online battle arena, or MOBA for short, game, where you take control of one of many different champions joined by 9 other players. The rules of the game are simple. There are 2 teams of 5 champions stationed on opposite sides of Summoner's Rift, the map where the game takes place. You are either on the blue side or the red side, with 4 teammates and 5 enemies on the other side. Your objective? Simple. Destroy the enemy nexus, that core in the middle of their base. Obstructing your path to their nexus are inhibitors, turrets, enemy minions, the little dudes you see walking down the lane, and of course the enemy champions. Now in this guide I am going to assume you've played the beginner and the battle tutorial, which if you have not, I strongly recommend you do so now. If you have not installed the game and you're still thinking, should I play this game or not, I still suggest you do the tutorial first, because, well, everything in this tutorial is basic knowledge that I'm going to assume you already know from those tutorials. As much as I would like to go over them, I think it would make more sense for you to do the tutorial first. The tutorial can do you a lot more justice than I could in this situation. So, you finish the tutorial and you're probably wondering, what do I do now? Well, for me, the first big obstacle as a new player were the champions that I can play as. Now, back when I started playing in Season 3, it was about the middle of Season 3, there weren't nearly as many champions as we have now. Maybe about, I'm actually not even certain, but as of the time of this video, there are currently 133 champions, the latest one being Ivern the Greenfather. 10 of those 133 champions are randomly chosen to be free for any player to use every week, with this free rotation resetting every Tuesday. Now, while I was in the middle of making this guide, what happened was for the next 4 weeks, 10 supports will be added to the free rotation. So technically for now, there are 20 champions free for play, but not including these next couple of weeks that are special, there are going to be 10 randomly chosen champions that you can play with. Now, you will not start with those champions. You also will not start with any champions, period. From levels 1 to 5, you will have the following champions available to you: Ashe, Garen, Jinx, Kha'Zix, Lissandra, Lux, Ryze, Shyvana, Varus, and Wukong. Once you hit level 6, the normal free rotation that's available every week will be available to you. To help you decide what kinds of champions you may want to gravitate towards, I will explain the 5 roles in League of Legends. First, we have the most important member of the team, arguably, the attack damage carry, or ADC for short. These are marksmen, fragile range champions that can output very strong physical damage from a safe distance. Ashe is a notable example. She does not have a lot of health, nor does she have any mobility, so she's slow, but she does have very high range and she can do a lot of damage from far away without putting herself in harm's way. If she gets caught, she will die relatively easily because, as I said before, she does not have any mobility, so you have to be careful. An AD carry is typically going to be in the lane at the bottom of the map, the bot lane, paired with a support. Supports are high utility champions that can pack a lot of crowd control, which are stuns, silences, slows, roots. They can also have a lot of utility in the forms of heals, shields, and buffs for their allies, and a myriad of other things. A lot of supports can do a lot of different things. For example, there's Braum, who is a tanky support that can soak up tons of damage for his allies and block almost any projectile in the game. Then there's the squishier heal bot, Soraka, who uses her own health to keep her allies alive. As I stated before, supports are paired with the AD carry in the bot lane in order to help them acquire farm in the early game, because ADCs are typically weak in the early game, so they need somebody to help them farm the minions, keep them safe from the enemy AD carry and such. Mid laners. Mid laners, who obviously go to the lane in the middle of the map, hence the term mid lane, are typically one of two classes. I say typically because there are some exceptions, but I don't want to confuse you with that right now. So we're going to stick to the basics. The first of these two classes are mages. Mages, like AD carries, are very fragile, sometimes low mobility champions. However, mages differ in two areas. One, mages deal magic damage. Magic damage is the opposite of physical damage. They can deal extremely high amount of single target or area of effect burst damage as well. Some marksmen are able to do area of effect damage, but mages are typically known for their big burst and magic damage. I can't think of any mages off the top of my head that do physical damage. I mean, technically, no, don't want to confuse you, so I'll just leave that out. Now, Lux is a notable example of a mage because she's slinging her spells across the rift, dealing extremely high magic damage to multiple enemies at the same time. Like most AD carries though, she is squishy and she is immobile as well. So once again, you do have to be careful. Mages typically have very long range, so you can sit in the back and poke with your abilities. Assassins, on the other hand, are typically very high mobility, high damage champions that specialize in eliminating key targets like the AD carry and the mage quickly. Assassins are not easy to play, be warned. They require patience, timing, and a fundamental knowledge of how an assassin works. Now, if you've played other games and you know how assassins work, then all the more power to you. Go ahead and try them out. If not, just keep that in mind. They're not easy. One good example of an assassin is Kha'Zix, who, ironically enough, is really, really strong right now due to some changes he got in the Assassin update. So if you're a fan of Assassins, then this is actually a perfect time for you to try playing the game. Top lane. You see that lonely lane at the top of the map where not that many people go? That is my personal home, the top lane, home to many big burly fighters and tanks. Top laners typically fill the role of the tank for the team, soaking up damage and putting out a decent amount of damage on their own. Garen's a perfect example. He's naturally durable, and he can do a decent amount of damage in the right hands, even if he's not building for damage. They're versatile and, for the most part, relatively easy to pick up. So if you're having trouble trying to gravitate towards any specific role or even any specific champion, go ahead and try out the fighters. There's a ton of them too. I believe the most type of champion that we have are fighters, so there's a lot of options available for you. Last, but certainly not least, we have the jungler. Do you see that area between the lanes where all those monsters are crawling about? Well, like I said, I'm assuming you've played the beginner and battle tutorial, so you should know. That is the jungle. The jungler's role is a complicated one that is actually impossible to explain the intricacies of in this video. I'm going to be making a separate video for each of the roles, by the way, if you haven't guessed that yet. But let me try and keep this simple for you. As you know, dealing the killing blow or getting the last hit on a minion will grant you gold. This is what we refer to as farm, and how you'll be making gold. But as you've obviously noticed, the 3 lanes are already occupied by another champion. You have the AD carry in the bot lane with a support who's not taking farm, the mid laner who's getting farm, and the top laner who's getting farm. You can't really share farm because then you're cutting the gold that both people get in half, and eventually they'll both fall behind. So what is the 5th member of the team to do? They are going to be stationed in the jungle, killing monsters to obtain golden experience and rotating between the lanes to gank the enemy. I'll go over ganking more in depth in another video, but just for now, ganking means to ambush an enemy unsuspectingly. For example, if you as the jungler run to the mid lane with your mid laner and attack the enemy, now it's 2 people versus 1, putting them at a numbers disadvantage. That is the jungler's job. It's not an easy one, because knowing when to gank and when not to gank can be tricky for beginners, especially considering how specific junglers work. Some are gank heavy, some are not, some are weaker earlier on, some aren't. Not only that, junglers are also in charge of contesting the 3 giant monsters. The one between the bottom and the middle lane, the dragon, and there are 2 between the mid lane and the top lane. For the first couple of minutes of the game, it will be the Rift Herald. When it's 20 minutes into the game, it will disappear and become Baron Nashor. Many different champions are able to jungle, so it's hard to suggest a few, but for the most part, you'll typically see fighters, tanks, and assassins in the jungle. Remember the Kha'Zix, the mid laner I mentioned to you earlier? Well, he's not exactly a mid laner by default, he's actually a jungler, and that's where you'll see him most of the time, if you even see him, considering how much he's banned. But another good jungler by default is Shyvana, who's actually getting a rework soon, but that comes for another day. And that is all 5 roles in League of Legends. Now you should have at least a relatively decent idea of what kinds of champions go where and what each type of champion can do. Some champions are very unique and can do very specific things that no other champion in the game can do. So go ahead, look around the store, read up on the wiki, and see what champions catch your eye. I've done gameplay commentaries on quite a few different ones, so if by chance you stumble across one that I've covered, check out the video and see if their skill sets interest you. Remember, always read up on a champion that you don't know. Knowledge is power, and this is the first big step to playing League of Legends. It'll take a long time to really learn every single champion in the game, but at least having a basic idea of some champions should help you ease into the game a bit better. Thank you for watching, and I really hope this video has helped you in any form or fashion, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Ta-ta for now.